Hey, welcome. You have arrived at the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. We are trying to help you win your fantasy football drafts. Probably about 60% of your success will be tied to the drafts. This is lesson 27, tight end positional analysis, part 1B. So if you haven't seen my other lessons, suggest you go back and start at lesson 1. I am a college professor, been teaching since 1995, and with COVID and everything, I've been doing these voiceover PowerPoints, and kind of got in the groove to do that. And I thought I'd try to do a video textbook, and I use these lessons as that vehicle. Continue to check me out at Fake Pigskin and on Twitter at Professor Fantasy One on Twitter. Check me out. Uh, Pretty much fantasy football. Don't stray a lot into other aspects. There's plenty of other people to do that for you if you like that kind of entertainment. Okay, so let's continue our journey of these tight ends here. Again, we're never really leave age, do we? Always kind of have age and experience in our backgrounds on things to think about. It's got to be something that has to be weighed. The trick is figuring out what is the proper weight of all the variables in our models. But anyway, we are still doing landscape views, not to players yet. Again, this is my process. Doesn't have to be your process, but I'm glad you're here listening. Uh, but it's a landscape view, a top-down view, and I like to do it that way. That's the way I've been doing it. I've been successful. If you count money as success, that's the way we track money. If you're a gambler, that's how you track your success, right? So that's how I do it as well. And let's continue. So tight end fantasy points per game versus age sector 2002 to 2020. So that gives us a big, broad view. Here is the first table of metrics here. Position is tight end, the year from '02 to 20. The age range 21 to 23, 24, 26, 27, 30, and 30 plus. And then the average of that year of all tight ends that were on a roster that were given a chance to score points, right? And we'll start over in the right-hand column just to remind us, and we've seen this before, we are not in the golden age of the tight end. We are kind of stuck in this kind of steady area at about like that. All tight ends are doing about 3.5, 3.6 fantasy points per game on average, right? This is not the top 12 tight ends. This is all the tight ends, okay? It's just one way to look at it. It's not necessarily the only way, it's a way. Okay. And then in the different age categories, age sectors, I circled the top 5 in the, 18 years or so, or is it 19? Whatever it is. And we see that '02 to '04 was pretty much the show here. And you see a lot of circled areas. What I do note is that the younger tight ends have been doing fairly well early and not so much late. And we've seen kind of a shift here. Looks like all the tight ends are doing fairly well. Okay. Then it looks like we see kind of a mid shift here. And then this is kind of where we're at now in all tight ends, is kind of a seasoned tight end kind of situation. Note the idea of a rookie or early tight end not being up to par is confirmed by the metrics. There's nothing surprising here, and certainly you're starting to hit peak 27 to 30, and by the old dogs, they're really bringing home the bacon. And of course, anytime you're looking at players and survivorship cohorts and following them through time, you're going to lose players, right? So by the time we get to 31 in NFL, a lot of players already gone out of the league. So that pretty much means we've got the survivors are pretty much able to produce because they're survivors and teams keep them, right? So it's kind of a selection model here. Probably not surprising. Here is trend lines. I love to look at visual trend lines. I like to scan across trend lines and look across years and segments and these kind of things just to kind of get a feel for where things were, where things used to be, and where things are in recent times. And so I do polynomial trend lines. I don't do simple linear. I think that hides some things. So I think polynomials give us a better view. It's not as clean as a linear, but hey, you know, what you want to do here. I want to win. So you have to kind of work with what we got here. So the youth is in the green line, and you see that the peak for youth, early tight ends was way back in the old days. 2000, I'm sorry, it looks like the font's a little big here, but that's 2002, 3, and 4. And we've seen a little bit of resurgence in recent years. Okay, so just kind of keep that thinking about. But for the most part, you know, since about here to there, it's been towards the bottom. The 24 to 26 really bottomed out here. They were okay, kind of young. And then now we're seeing them making a comeback here, actually. So we're seeing a little bit of a seasoning process there. And actually, my bad, what I was showing you, sorry, I can't tell red from purple. That was actually the old dogs. Okay, so I was thinking 20. No, that's not right. So it's the old dogs that are now have been showing up since about 2012, starting that run, and now we're above the rest of the age groups here, the old dogs. So seasoned tight ends are pretty much ruling the roost, and all the other ones in recent years are not doing that. I think that's the big take home. I think the table data shows that, but you can follow the trends. So what does that mean for this season coming up? I think I would be extra cautious with younger tight ends. That's just, I think the data is hitting you over the head. We're going to look at the top tight ends, okay, the top 25 and percentile at the end of the season. So we'll get a clearer view of the more relevant tight ends. But right now, the metrics are skewing towards the more seasoned tight ends as the better bets. Just, again, looking at all of them. Let's see. So here is the rank sector, the top 75 to 100 at the end of the season. This is not ADP. This is the actual rankings at the end here, top 25 from year 02 to 20, and the average fantasy points per game. And now we see a shift. If you look at the top group, we have an interesting kind of 3 layers here. The early years. Okay, you can divide in this range. And we are in this era here, getting back to 9, but notice we were almost at 10, 9, 9, 9, 8. So we haven't made it back yet, but we're clearly better. So the best tight ends are really producing more than in the olden days. Okay, good to know. As far as age range, again, some season aspects. There's maybe uh, not as prevalent in the older ones. Looks like we kind of had a nice little run here, the 27 to 30-year-old, and we definitely had a little bit of spike at 24 to 26. And notice here that we've been in the dumps on rookie or young ones, and notice some of these paid off here. So the simple moving to the old season tight end makes sense overall, but if you're looking at the more relevant ones, it looks kind of like some kind of youthful tight ends are making their self known, as well as the seasoned dogs. The 24 to 26 range here is kind of in the bottom. If you plotted this, this would be the lowest point, which is interesting. So are these kind of regressing, or what's going on here? Certainly 8.8 is not too bad in the 27 to 30. So I guess to me, my take home is looking for the season tight end. That seems relevant, 27 up. But if there's a phenom out there, I think you cannot ignore like you could back for many of the years. So it's not as sweet a story. It's not as easy a story. It was with all data and real world. It's more complex. Wouldn't it be nice if it was just one simple answer and we move on? But that's not the case. In fact, it having the kind of a showing of some of these young tight ends last year kind of is a conundrum. With that said, that was COVID. Was there a leaning to the younger tight ends? Were they forced to step up, or were teams giving them more opportunity with, say, running backs and wide receivers on the teams being on the COVID lists more than usual? Was that putting the tight ends up a little bit? So just in the back of your head, add some uncertainty to that scenario here. And I know I just said a scenario and here's the data, but you've got to, you just can't let things be simple. You've got to try to entertain possibilities and probabilities. And I'm just saying the COVID story for last year may have influenced things that we're not aware of, and that could be evidence of that. It's kind of like we can't see it, but it's there. It's undercurrent. Till you jump in the water, you don't know that there's a raging riptide. So just be aware that most pundits out there are probably looking at the water. This looks fine, let's jump in. I am trying to be a little bit more thoughtful. That's it. That's what you're going to get from me. And you were like, well, I wish we had clarity. I wish we had clarity too, but I can't pretend that things, the elephant in the room, I can't ignore it. So I will not ignore it, and we're just going to have to deal with uncertainty. Go back to the lesson where people are actually, concerned with uncertainty and it affects them, right? And I told you I took the little test, and I'm not scared of uncertainty. I'm highly anxious, no doubt about that. Very anxious, right? I can't When I get something on my head, it's hard to go sleep. It just runs all through my head all the time. And during in season, every week, it's just all the time show. It's like you're never given a break until the final play is done for week 16 and the league is decided and the winner. That's it. That's when you could think about resting a little bit until you got to dig up the data and start all the process over again. So we're still in the process trying to get the data, but having to live with complexity and simple answers are not for those who love metrics. If somebody's a metrics person and they're too simplifying, then they're either not being truthful or maybe they're not as metric-y, I don't know if that's a word, as they think. Okay, so it's never straightforward, right? But as a biologist, I'm telling you, as Malcolm said in Jurassic Park, nature finds a way to change what we think and beat the system. So, looking at a superficial view of metrics, you will get burned on occasion. So just, that doesn't mean walk away from it. I mean, you just, you've got to stay with this. You've got to be a bulldog and take hold, and you cannot let it go. Okay? Okay, until your teeth break. And then gum it to death. Oh, come on now. Let's get going. Okay. Enough of that. Here's the views. And what we're seeing is that we saw some movement towards some of the seasoned, so we end up with all three last year, again, a COVID year, whereas the older dogs were kind of in their next tier. But it's not, look at the pattern, it's just not simple. It's not like a simple linear at all. There's waves and trends and deep peaks and valleys. And it's probably player specific, coach and teams and strength of schedule that's playing a part in setting, right? It's setting the gutters, right? If you're bowling, right, you can do the bumper protector so you don't fall in the gutter. Unfortunately, that's not the real world. There's gutters there. There's valleys and there's peaks. Okay. But this is where we were at in 2020. And this is the summary of the trends that is available to look at in the top 25%. So if we try to drill down a little bit and do something called year sectors where I group years together, I try to simplify as much as I can. Doesn't mean we can't try to simplify the data. Okay. When you group things, sometimes you'll miss outliers, right? Sometimes the most important piece of data is the outlier, and that's telling you something you're not understanding. You are not understanding what's going on, and just be aware of that, You can't ignore, like, well, I'm not going to worry about the elephant room. Well, when they move, you will worry about them. Okay, so if we looked at the top 25% in the top table here, from the different segment from the old days to recent, and I did the top first, and notice there's been a shift to certainly here's the second best, right? Here's second best. Here's second best. And here's second best. So it looks to me like, the trend is pointing to 27 to 30 just kind of looking in the collective data here. Okay, and still, I know last year was a COVID year, but overall, here's the rookies. In the last 4 years, we've had a real poor output of rookie tight ends. But then that may have colored people's views of the rookie or the young tight ends too. And like I said, we had a little bit of a blip last year. So just kind of put a question mark there. Okay. The next group, if you're in a two tight end or tight end premium where you're drafting, say, three tight ends, it's pretty clear in the last two segments that young tight ends are doing okay as well as old. So I don't think there's any big story here. Okay. It's like whoever's able to score a touchdown in these tight end 2 and 3 are probably the pick, right? So you've got to Ouija the system to see are the tight ends used. So we'll drill down, and I'm actually working on that. Oh, that's about 30 something lessons ahead, but looking at the team usage, and I think if I was picking second and third, I wouldn't wait too late. I think we talked a little bit about, rankings and things. But I would be looking for teams that use tight ends more than other teams. Just kind of skew a little bit. I'm not going to name those teams now. You can tune back and add that piece of data. We are building. Okay, that's how this is. There is not one lesson with everything in it. Okay, it's not a whole piece of pie you can eat all at once. So, if you want, just don't take the journey with me. I'm just showing you what I do. Okay, look, I know. Okay, but that's who I am. Some people would say extreme. To me, it's not. To me, it's you got to do this. Okay, I have that desire and I have that drive. I can't drop it. I'm either going to play fantasy football, I'm all in, or I'm going to sit on the couch and be a big slug. I'm all or none kind of player. I can't dabble in things. I don't know how to play for second place. I either crush you like a bug or go down trying. That's it. Or I won't play at all. I don't play anything that's not money involved. Okay. I know it's nice. We played a little game. Nah. If there's not money on the table, I'm not, we can play for fun, but I'm not putting myself out there. And I urge you to be all or none. That's all I got to say. All or none in fantasy football. Where are you going to be? Toilet bowl or the league champ? Come on now. Uh, just a quick landscape view looking at bar graphs of the top 25 and then the next 25. And I colored the bars with a sickly yellow with the black borders to show you the tops here. And we can see that the last 4 years we really haven't had the top, but the older ones, right, the 27 to 30, that's in orange here, haven't done too bad. Okay, that's kind of been the top of this year, this segment. In the previous years, these were the tops. And the youth were the tops from 7 to 11. So I think we're more in this era now. Okay. And I think we talked about that. And notice in recent times, it's hard to pick anything to land on. I would look at team usage and red zone opportunities that teams do for tight ends, something like it. Some metrics that point you to the second or third tight end on your team able to score a touchdown for a bye week or a two tight end league or something. Okay, that's how I would look at that. But okay, that was age. This is experience. Okay, let's look at experience. Fantasy points per game. Position, year. I'm just reading the columns going left to right. Rookie, 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 11 plus. And then the average, and this is all, and notice again, this is all tight ends. And we had some pretty good blips here. And if we divide by experience, looks like we're living in the era of 6 years of experience or better, all the way up to 11 years. That's producing some of the higher plays per year. And we've seen kind of a shift from this world, right, moving to this world. So kind of a shift. And we were really good with youth early on. We haven't seen a lot of that in recent years, not at all. Okay, so I think the story remains kind of the same. It just breaks it up instead of age, but by years experience. All tight ends, not top 25. And this is yeah, I know, this is just looking across. Okay, so if you look at where the deep purple red are, that's right there. That's 9 to 10. And probably the brown is next highest. And then the blue and the green are right in here. And so you can see that the older dogs are producing the highest. The highest mountains are up here. Okay. Notice the youth in the early days here. And this is some of the weak kind of valleys here in the young and 5 down young. Okay. Not a lot of mountains here, a lot more valleys. Here's the big Himalayas right up here. So that's how you interpret this. Okay, that's look, it's pretty. I like it. It's in color. Okay. You can look at the chart that I just showed you. Same thing. It's just another way to look at it. But to me, it hammers home, the worlds we're living with all tight ends. Here's the top 25. Here's the relevant tight ends. And notice old dogs are not as prominent, and looks like we're seeing a shift from 4 to 6 now. Okay, that's very interesting. So in 2 tight end leagues, I think my second tight end I wouldn't worry about. I'd look for some seasoning, but I wouldn't worry. But my top tight end, I think we've got to look hard at year 4, 5, and 6. I mean, that's what the metrics are saying to me. Okay. So we're still seeing some production in year 7, but it's starting to be, weak sauce. And the old dogs are just not as relevant as they used to be within the top probably 12 tight ends, something like that. So that completely changes the paradigm here. The age wasn't as critical. To me, experience really exposes probably closer to the truth of where we should be mining our tight end 1 from. And the sweet spot, I think, is after 3 years of experience, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So I'm going to find those, but if I were you, I'd go find the ages and see who's turning 4 years, 5, 6 years of experience and see what you see there. Maybe even 7 years, maybe 8. But, you're starting to get a little risky biscuits out there at 9, 10, 11 for the top tight end. Doesn't mean for 2 or 3, right? If it's a tight end premium, etc. Okay, or a 2 tight end league. I don't know if there are 2 tight end leagues. If they got 2 quarterback league, let's do 2 tight ends. Come on now. So kind of think about experience. Maybe it's telling us more than age there. Isn't that interesting? I think it's good. I'm satisfied with, my marching orders here based on this for this year's draft. I'm satisfied. Here's the area here, and this is the top of the top right there. Okay, and even the 12 is not bad. Okay, and notice probably a little. This is probably a little skewed here because I think we're going down in the older dogs. So this is probably closer to the 4 to 7 in here. I think it's a little hard to tell by air. I think the table is probably better than the area graph. I just like area graphs. So go back to the table. Okay, watch it again, go it back, write it down, take a screenshot, take a picture on your camera, take it with you to your draft, crush them like bugs. Yeah. Using year sector again, I love this technique, and looks to me things have really changed in the old days versus the younger days. Okay, and this is just all tight ends again, not the top 25. Okay, just seeing that shift to seasoning. I think I'm looking for seasoning, and I think the top 25, I think there's a lot more tight ends that are still in the league that are skewing these numbers down. You're saying, how come all these? That's why. Just told you why. Team's got to have more than one tight end, right? So they're probably not keeping a lot of old dogs on their. They're probably getting some of the fresher dogs. Okay, just saying. Just the trend is big difference. 2 tiers here. This is the in recent times, 02 to 11. This was the show for the old dogs. Notice the trend for seasoning has really showed up in 12 to year 2012 to 20. I think we can say that. So there's a lot of different moving parts we just went over. Okay, there's some contradictory evidence. You've got to follow what I'm doing here. Okay, because I'm thinking across, then I focus on the top, then I break it back out again. Okay, so that's why you may have to listen to me drone on, put you to sleep, wake up. I need me a cowbell to wake up. We need more cowbell. Yeah. And, but I think seasoning, but relevance the last few years looks like 4, 5, 6, 7 years for experience is really the telling thing, I think. If you take nothing else away, I think that's what I would do. Think about. Okay. Hope you enjoyed it. This is the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. We're having too much fun. I'm glad you're keeping up with me. We're just getting started. My goal is to have at least 100 videos out by July. Okay. Yeah. You're saying, well, you can't have that. Yeah, I got that much data. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. We're gonna make that. We're gonna get close. Okay. We can do this. Okay. Thanks for listening. Come back.